Presenter today, Sandy Marsico, CEO of Sandstorm, and Sandy's going to talk to us about the spectrum of personalization. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Sandy.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you everybody for attending today. So what we're going to cover is the varying degree of personalization from simple to complex, because when a user is visiting your website, that's the start of a conversation. And more than ever, your users are expecting to engage in a conversation that's really tailored to them. So to get started, 3/4 of your users want personalized content. We live in Amazon's world. Amazon's all about saving time and convenience. This is all trending big right now. So your users, they too want to save time and they want convenience and they want personalized content delivered to them. And by the looks of it, again, another 3/4 of you aren't giving them the content they're looking for. They're getting really frustrated with the websites and with experiences that aren't delivering what they're looking for. What I want to go through today is show you 5 different websites that are achieving a personalized experience, starting really small and basic, taking it to where we're seeing the future of personalization going, where it's starting to potentially border on that creep factor, which we'll talk a little bit about as well. So to get started, I want to introduce you all to the Congress of Neurological Surgeons. So this association, they offer education and career development to advance neurosurgery. And one way that they're using personalization, again, we're talking at a basic level, is when they have their member or their user log in, the very first thing they're doing is they're putting in their name. So in this case, it says, "Welcome, Dr. Haas." If I had to guess, I'm thinking at least half of you are doing this already. Not only is this the beginning of personalization, but this is a big best practice in user experience, especially when you're dealing with information and personal information, right? The reason that your users want to see their name up there is, one, it shows them immediately. It's kind of like this quick look to say, ooh, boo, I'm logged in. 2, it reminds them to make sure that they log out, especially if they've got secure information there. And 3, it's a quick clue and to let the user know, oh, hey, this is me. I'm in the right place. I'm in the right spot, right? So you see this often with, when you're logged into Gmail or any of those accounts, right? That's why they're using that quick personalization of your name, because it's a good UX cue. But in addition to the name, we've also been able to identify, right, that in this particular case, Dr. Haas has a membership due. They have a balance on their account. So we're able to personalize the message for this particular physician that lets them know that there is a balance on their account, right? So this is simply an integration with an AMS, pulling out the name, and then letting them know something that's particular to them. So if we're looking at like a basic level for a lot of the organizations out there, if you've got somebody logging in, this is a quick way to be able to say, hey, I know who you are, you're in the right spot, and hey, here's a little message for you that pertains to you. Taking this just a little bit further, I want to show you the Association for Corporate Growth. So ACG has over 15,000 members. They've got 60 chapters, and their membership includes anyone in mergers and acquisitions and basically corporate growth professionals. So they put on thousands of events each year. And in this example, I'm showing you particularly what Chicago is doing. So if we zoom in, what I'm showing you is a basic event detail for everybody that comes to the site, right? So right now, there is no one's registered, no one's logged in, right? They're just letting you know, hey, here's where the event. After they log in, what you can see is that they now can see that they've got their event registration confirmation done and the attendee list is filled out. So if I go back really quickly, the attendee list wasn't there, they had some event materials, and you're just registering. But moving forward, it's simply showing, hey, now I can go see my confirmation. Now I can see my attendee list. You could even take this a step further by maybe showing content around, hey, now that I've seen you registered, why don't you download the event app, right? So all of this can be automated. All of this is personalized based on the user's actions and what they're doing. Moving to Texas Oncology, what we're doing is we're taking personalization a couple steps further in each example. With Texas Oncology, this is a physician group for cancer patients. But like many of you, they don't just have one user group. This website's for patients, it's for caregivers, it's for referring physicians, right? And what you're looking at is the main web page that's their general information. So they talk about their oncology care model, and they talk about their innovation, and it's a little bit more of a general picture, right, that's catering to everyone and anyone that's going to their site. But in this case, they're not requesting any kind of login, but what they're letting the users do is self-select to start to personalize their own content. So if I zoom in here across the top nav in this area, the end user gets the option to say, I'm a patient, or I'm a caregiver, or I'm a referring physician, so that their experience is no longer just the generic type content, one size fits all, but it then allows the user to self-identify, and with that small click, they can start to get more information. So if I click to give you an example of I'm a patient, you can now see the messaging and the imagery has completely changed. It's not about their model. It's not about the innovation. It's really speaking with an empathetic tone about from surviving to thriving. It talks about defining a new normal after cancer. You now have this new landing page and this new experience that's been built and designed for the patient. In addition to just changing the graphic header, again, we're talking about like how do we grow this piece by piece. In addition to changing the graphic header and putting in a little bit of content, they've also, if we scroll down, given the patients information if you've been newly diagnosed, if you're a current patient, if you're a survivor. So with Texas Oncology, they've done a self-selection process in the upper header, in the header navigation. They have then done a new graphic imagery, so they personalized imagery, personalized that headline messaging, and then further down, written content specifically for the patients, for the cancer patients, speaking to them. We call this a little bit of the mock personalization because it's literally using a type of navigation to get personalized content. I'm going to take this a little bit further. Another example is the Arthritis Society. So this is a charity in Canada, and they provide education, research, they do advocacy solutions for those, again, with arthritis. So they've got multiple user groups, those that are with arthritis, those that have a loved one with arthritis, and those that are maybe a healthcare professional. What you're looking at is the standard homepage. I don't know who you are yet. This is kind of general. It's going to everyone. Again, this end user can start to self-select in two ways. So when I click, in this case, that I'm living with arthritis, I then get new graphical images, but I'm also going to get new content. And in this particular case, they're really using imagery to start to tell one of their core stories, which is arthritis is not just for senior citizens. Arthritis actually occurs in young adults, right? It's not necessarily somebody who's maybe a bit older who could get arthritis. So they're using imagery to start to tell the solutions. But in addition to the self-selection of who I am, you also have a link above on the top for your province. So again, we're talking in Canada for your location. So you've got now a complexity of depending on my location and depending on which user I am. Am I living with arthritis? Am I a loved one with it? Or am I a healthcare professional? Will determine further down on this homepage what you get. So scrolling down, I've got the ability to see these upcoming events. Again, this is literally pulling together where you say you're located and where you are on the user group platform, and they'll identify the right courses and workshop and events that work for that user. So it allows, it's a great filtering system and some personalization to build a custom experience for that user. In addition to upcoming events, they also will show recent news maybe that's global, and then news that's local to you, again, based on who you are and where you're at. Now examples 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all requiring your user to actually do something, right? So they're logging in, or they're registering for an event, or they're self-selecting. That's everything that you could be doing in Drupal and in Kentico and in your CMSs. Moving forward, and what we're seeing for the future of personalization doesn't require the user to do a single thing. I want to show you Optimizely. So right off the bat, what you're looking at is the homepage for Optimizely that's showing what anybody would get, right? This is their generic homepage, but they've got one thing in there. They're looking at your IP address, checking the time of day, and then in this case, they're saying good morning, right? Super simple, just based on the IP and time of day. They're starting to show you what personalization can be if you fall into their bucket of generalization, generalized public. But they've taken it a step further, okay? So not only have they said, here's a general user group, they've also put together user groups based on industries, based on IP addresses. So this next example is what you would see if you are in the travel agency business. So they took the Orbitz IP address, the Expedias, the Pricelines, large travel agencies, travel sites. They put them all together, lumped them as a user group, checked the time of day. So now you're in good afternoon, right? When your person's going onto the site, your user's on the site. And they optimize the content. So they say, let's optimize digital experiences for your travelers, right? Because they know that they're speaking specifically to the travel industry. In addition to that, they've also added a travel imagery. So what you can do with personalization, not having the user do a single thing, you can group them into industries, but that's not all. Optimizely has also used it in their sales efforts to optimize a specific personalized experience based on IP address for a company. So imagine this is your first time going on Optimizely and you work for Adidas and you see this. They don't know who you are by name, but they know that you're at work. They know that you're on that network. And they start with, hello Adidas, let's optimize digital experiences for your athletes. So they've done this for Microsoft, for Target, right? They've identified large organizations they want to go after. They've created them in a particular user group and built and developed a custom experience for those that are within that IP address, right? So what we're seeing, the user hasn't done anything yet. All they've done is gone onto the site from a particular location, and the personalization starts to begin. So this is where we start to fall that fine line of when is it Big Brother creepy and when is it personalization. But what you might want to know, how do I get started, right? How am I going to get started to do personalization from the simple, hey, I'm logging in, give me a couple pieces of content that work for me based on what you know, to I've registered for an event, let me see the attendee list, or let me download an app, to, hey, this is a particular type of user group I am. To get started, you first have to define your user groups. So in the healthcare space, it's often those patients and caregivers and professionals. But in Optimizely's case, they did it by industry, by individual organization, and general buckets, right? So what first thing we want you to do is really define those user groups. Then identify areas to personalize, and we highly recommend that you start small, right? Start with a headline, start with some graphics, start with some imagery, start tracking a little bit about like maybe some content that they're looking at so that you could deliver them like, hey, you like this content, you might like that. But start in small doses, because you're going to have to then build a content strategy around it and produce custom content. We literally have a wireframe graveyard at Sandstorm of big picture thinking and big ideas in the beginning, and we're building all these wireframes, showing all this personalization. We're ready to go into development. Everyone loves the user experience, and then content can't get delivered. Content can't get written. They're struggling around writing all of that custom content to tell the story. So do know that if you're going to be moving forward with personalization, it's going to require not just a budget on your web dev side, but also on your content side, because we do not want to put any more wireframes in the grave because we just didn't allocate, or there just wasn't the capacity to build out content for that personalization. And the other thing, we want you to make sure you save extra time for QA, because it's way more complex when you've got to look at multiple scenarios on, let's say, the same page to say, okay, I've got these different use cases producing different content. You need to test that. There would be nothing worse than you working for some other company that says, hello, Adidas, and you're like, wait, what? I don't get it. This doesn't make sense for me, right? So all of this needs to be tested when you're doing personalized content and doing personalization on your website. So I'm just asking for extra time on the QA testing, and make sure that you produce that custom content, or just at least allocate time, resources, and energy to do that. So without further ado, I'd love to open for questions.
Great. Thank you, Sandy. So for those of you who want to submit a question, there is a chat bubble on top of your screen, and you can just write up your question, and we'll get to it. And as people are thinking about questions, so Sandy, one of the things that I'm thinking about is, what are the best areas for my website to start personalization?
Yep. Thanks, Kevin. I would really look at it's like your home page, or any landing page, or maybe your dashboard, right? Those are the real easy, first beginning, great places to start, because that's what the visitors are going to see. And when I say like landing page, it very well could be, let's say you're doing an SEM campaign, or you've got a lot of Google traffic that's going to some key pages on your site. That's what we're referring to as a landing page, right? You have a home page, but you have all of these other kind of mini home pages. And they've shown that with some personalization, you can improve your conversion. So that's really where I would look first, and I would start with some of the easy ones, maybe some headlines and some images as a great way to start. And that's what we really wanted to show, because personalization can get really deep, really complex, really fast. But I really was hoping to get the group today into like dipping their toe into the water to what's possible and how they could do something today. And like your event registrations and those personalizations on your homepage or at login are the really quick ways to start personalizing.
Okay, great. And so you showed us earlier about personalizing the home page, like, welcome, Dr. So-and-so. What other ways can we personalize our home pages?
Yep. If they're already logged in, it could be like, hey, here's an event that you maybe were at in the past. You might like this event as well, right? So there's a kind of like that recommendation that you see often on Amazon products, like if you like this, you might like this. You can always also remind them of additional special events that are coming up in their area. You can use cookies to kind of track what content your users are already looking at, and then serve the most recent content that they've already looked at, maybe with some similar topics, to say like recently viewed and topics that might interest you. So that's like an easy way, especially when you're logged in, that you could start to personalize that dashboard or that new homepage just based on where they've been and what they've been interested in the past.
Okay, great. And one of our participants was asking, I just launched my new redesigned website. Is it too late for me to go back and personalize areas?
No. Oh, that's the best part about this. Personalization is an ongoing process, and you absolutely could do this in phases. And that's when I say start small. You could budget for each year or each quarter about starting personalization piece by piece. So a newly launched website is probably one of the most ideal times because you've just gone through new IA, you've just written some new content. You can look at it now with some fresh eyes to say, hey, where are there some opportunities for me? And again, just start small. This is not something that's going to require lots of rewriting. It's something that's built upon. So you've got your first layer, let's say, of content. Now you can write different content for different components, and we can start to work that way.
Okay, great, thank you. Another participant was asking, who should the team members or stakeholders be in my personalization strategy team?
Okay, so you're definitely going to want, so each organization is different with who they have, right, and who their key stakeholders are on the website project. But I would say two components or two individuals that you're going to want to be there is going to be someone who's in charge of content and content strategy, and then you're probably going to want some type of SME or subject matter expert, right, that's going to be able to help determine what type of content truly suits the particular audience segments that we're looking to personalize for. Another person that you'll probably want to have conversations in the room may be marketing, because there's marketing personas and then there's user personas. So you're going to want to have conversations about, from a marketing standpoint, what message is it that I want to get out to these different user groups, and then from a user's perspective, what type of content is it that they're looking for. If you happen to be lucky enough to have someone in user experience or a UX person on your team, I'd put them in the room, because they can really help you identify if you've crossed that creepiness factor, right? There's this whole fine line of being big brother or actually delivering value.
Great. Another question from one of our participants is there one CMS or website tool better at supporting and or implementing personalization features?
Yep. So two CMSs that come top of mind that have outstanding built-in personalization functionality are Kentico and Sitecore. They're all about a mix of being able to understand where users have been, what type of content they're looking for. They have built-in personas that you can develop and user groups. So it's already included with their software licenses. And two of the examples that I showed you, both oncology and arthritis, are in Kentico, one of the CMSs that we build in.
Okay,
now,
great.
If I could jump in. The other, you can do some personalization in. We had the first two examples of the associations were built in Drupal, so that's how we're using like the logins and the events. to start to personalize. But Kentico and Sitecore both allow, they already have a software system built inside that's tracking user behaviors and helping you deliver through their CMS and the interface, the WYSIWYG, the custom content objects.
Yeah, and I was just going to follow up to the person who asked about the question about I just launched my new site. And one of the things I was thinking of, if that organization did not use one of these CMS, that means there's no need to kind of redo everything, but maybe reach out to their CMS provider and ask them what kind of personalization features or tools they have, and maybe learn more about what their current tool can offer.
That is correct. We could even personalize within WordPress. There isn't a CMS that we can't do personalization with. I just get to do the more complex things like you saw with Optimizely. If I've got a Kentico or a Sitecore where I have to do, I have different opportunities if I'm in a Drupal or a WordPress for personalization.
Okay, great. And then since you mentioned Optimizely, are there best practices to keep personalization from getting, too creepy, like you mentioned before, of, this website knows way too much information about me? What's the balance that we should be thinking about?
Yeah, I almost wish I could do a vote on this webinar to find out how many people thought the Adidas thing crossed the line. Like, when did it get creepy and when didn't? But there is a best practice. You need to remember these 3 S's. The first one is don't use sensitive information. So I'll give you an example. I don't know how many of you guys know the whole story about Target, who exposed a teen girl's pregnancy. What they did is Target identified 25 products that this girl was looking at, right, purchasing, and then they sent her all these coupons for maternity clothing, nursery furniture, pictures of infants. The dad saw it because it was all written out to her and ran to Target and said, "What are you doing sending maternity stuff to my teen daughter?" And then called them back and apologized and said, "Sorry, some things are going on in my home that I didn't realize. My daughter's due in August." Okay? So in that case, Target crossed the line because they were actually using, in that case, sensitive information to deliver what they thought was good, a personalized experience. So again, don't use sensitive information. If you have their social security number, don't use it, right? Like, just keep in mind that people don't want to feel big brothered and creeped upon. They want to make sure that they're getting what they're interested in, but they just don't want it to go too far. The second S is don't stalk your users, right? Like, as we're getting more sophisticated, we know what it is that they're searching for. We know what they're reading, right? Be careful that, you've all seen an ad for an event that follows you across sites over and over and over again. I remember buying a swing set for my daughter years ago, and I got swing set information for like 6 months. I didn't even know how to tell them. I bought one, 6 months ago. So be aware that you want to be able to deliver content for them based on what you know, but don't stalk them. Like, at some point, you got to let it go. If they're not responding or they're not clicking on it or they're not interested in that content, just let it go. And lastly, the last S is about sharing. It's okay. Ask your users what information they want to share. Like, allowing users to self-select the information you use to personalize gives them the control. And that's what Texas Oncology is doing. That's what arthritis is doing, right? They're worried, like, having arthritis is sensitive. So they chose to let the end user share what they wanted to share and then use that information to personalize. So know that you've got these options, but if you remember these 3 S's, don't use sensitive information, don't stalk, and it's totally okay to ask your users what information they want to share.